The content you're about to hear may be graphic in nature. Listener discretion is advised.
Oh, how I wonder what it's like to relax. See the sky down under. Hope my plans collapse. Oh, how I'm under the surface of my tears, falling down asunder the meaning of my years.
This is True Crime XS.
So this is the final part of the Hunters Among Us. And I split these up. This is telling a little bit. We're still talking a little bit about the second story. But there was a third story that I at least wanted to bring into this just because of the similarities and sort of like where it crosses in terms of community and time. So this is the third part of Hunters Among Us. At some point I looked at all this, and I know we started talking about like Wisconsin appeals. So I'm swinging back around to this. I know I looked at this case at one point because I clipped an old article from May of 2007 about the appeals court rejecting his appeal.
Right.
And I wanted to throw that in here, kind of a summary.
So we're at the point now. So he has been, we just went over his convictions.
Right.
And, you know, he's going to be in jail for the rest of his life, essentially.
Right. So a state appeals court dismissed a challenge from a Minnesota man. That's how this kicks off from staff at NPR. A challenge from a Minnesota man sentenced to life in prison for gunning down 6 deer hunters in northern Wisconsin, saying his complaints were meritless. Kai Sauvage, 38, argued his trial judge should have suppressed statements he made to the police on a news reporter and challenged whether the evidence supported a guilty verdict and whether the judge had properly exercised his sentencing powers. The Third District Court of Appeals ruled there were no grounds to challenge his conviction. In fact, Vage's own attorneys told the court he had no grounds to appeal. But Kai sent 8 handwritten documents from prison taking issue with this conclusion, so the appeals court still had to review the case. The court found police read Kai his rights when he was arrested, and again, before questioning began. The court also found no basis to throw out the incriminating statements that Kai had made to a reporter. Police intercepted letters between the defendant and the reporter and recorded the conversations they had. The appeals court said that Kai knew his calls were being recorded and spoke to the reporter over his attorney's objections to him speaking to this reporter. As for the evidence, the appeals court said that his own testimony at trial established that he shot each of the victims and he meant to shoot all but 3, asking one of the hunters, "You're not dead yet?" ? A jury could conclude beyond a reasonable doubt that he did it. His trial judge considered the appropriate factors when sentencing. The court concluded the fatal shootings had occurred during a deer hunt in November 2004 after a group of hunters in Sawyer County. I'm pretty sure this is Thanksgiving, by the way.
Yeah, I think so too.
He had confronted Kai, 38, of St. Paul over trespassing in a tree stand. They said that Kai, among immigrant, testified during the trial. He shot the 6 white hunters and wounded 2 more in self-defense, claiming one of them fired a shot in his direction after they shouted racial epithets and cursed at him. The 2 survivors testified that he had begun walking from the confrontation when he turned and opened fire. So he's walking away, turns around, shoots at them. Prosecutors convinced the jury that Kai Bage had reacted in an angry outburst, feeling disrespected by the hunters, and tried to kill everyone so there would be no eyewitnesses. And then they close out saying he was sentenced to 6 consecutive life terms plus 165 years in prison. Now, why is this all coming up and why is this all interesting? In May of 2026, the Wisconsin Department of Corrections has to place Kai Bage in a supervised living facility. And about 2 weeks later, he dies on June 10th. Wisconsin Court of Appeals, that on their circuit access website, Circuit Court Access website, they announced his death on June the 12th. It's so interesting to me that like he passed away that way. And I noticed that they didn't publicize how he died. But if I was reading everything correctly, he would only be 59 years old now, I think.
I think he's actually 57.
Is it 57? Okay.
He was born September 24th, 1968, and he died June 10th, 2026. So 57.
I just thought that was interesting. So that added to the mystique of all of this.
I have heard at some point, I can't tell you what case it was. It doesn't really matter. But an argument was made in a case, an appeals case, that was about the life expectancy. And I learned from the argument that was made in a different case that life expectancy in jail is substantially lower than it is not in jail.
Oh, well, I mean, I believe that. I do know some very old convicts, but I also know a lot of people who die young. I always wonder how they die, though, because like sometimes I find out, and it's some kind of medical thing where in my mind I go, well, if they were out here in the world, they probably never would have had that medical issue or would have had access to care that might have stopped it.
Well, but right. And there were a lot of nuances to the appeals case that I was reading, but the attorney had taken it, like they were using it as part of their argument, right? And I had never considered that before, right? And it's just a statistical thing. So obviously every individual case is going to have its own, probabilities to look at, right?
Yeah.
There's all kinds of reasons why people die in prison. There's all kinds of reasons why people don't die in prison. There's, all kinds of reasons why people die out not in prison, out in the world, and they don't die out in the world, so it's a whole thing. But I just thought that was an interesting perspective, though. And then, of course, I can't remember the case, but I found it interesting. And then not too long after that, we're looking at this guy who died at 57, which I think is young. And I think he died from an illness because of the way that it ended, right?
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Because they move him over to have the respite care,
right?
Probably some kind of medical illness. Yeah.
Right. So it probably wasn't just like a heart attack.
I do not have enough information to even comment on that. I guess it could be like a heart attack or stroke, and you just don't recover.
Well, I guess what I mean is like, yeah, you're right. Like a heart attack where he just dies, like right then.
Right.
Because when you're moved and you're in hospice or whatever, that is typically a sign. Yeah, it could have been a heart attack or stroke, but he had some sort of ailment that was prolonged, right? And maybe he had a chance to survive. Maybe it was just as good he might survive, and I've misunderstood the situation. But regardless, usually if there's sort of a downhill spiral and then you die, it's from some sort of illness, right?
Yeah. So this case got the nickname the Tree Stand Murders, I think, or the Tree Stand Murderer. Yeah, it's the Tree Stand Murders. There's a book out there about it. There are some fascinating reads about this and kind of place and time, because several people like in the student realm kind of, so like more educational publications kind of took this up. But also like, I think I saw somewhere there was a Hmong Studies Journal article listed that talked about this stand your ground laws where they compared Wisconsin and...
This is a case that self-defense was argued. There's not even the slightest hint of any sort of actual defending of oneself in this case, right?
No, we would have needed to have we really would have needed to have had...
well, they're outside, for one thing.
First gunshot needs to be real and not a figment of Kai's imagination.
Correct, but, well, see, and
Even
I guess...
then, we have problems with the equal force part of that, you know?
Well, and he's on their property.
I'm not arguing about like where they're standing at the moment. He definitely was on their property. He gets over to the trail that leads back to the public land. What I'm saying is, like, the racism, as awful as it is not enough to shoot and kill 6 people.
Oh no! No. Yeah,
like, it has to be gunshots.
This man, there's something seriously wrong with this man.
Oh yeah.
Seriously wrong with him. And, truth be told, like, he was a danger. And, there could be something that prompted it that has nothing to do with him feeling slighted from any reason. He could have been on something. He could have, I don't know, had a psychotic break. I mean, something caused this insanity to occur, though, right?
Oh yeah,
and he's very unstable, and it is 1,000 wonders that he hadn't displayed that type of behavior previously. Because,
well, to some degree, he had displayed some short-tempered stuff. Like he choked one wife out for gambling.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because when I initially was looking into him, I actually thought that he had killed that wife, and I couldn't figure out why he hadn't been punished for it. And like, if he had been punished for it, none of this would have happened. But he didn't actually kill her. It was just nearly choked his wife to death.
Right. Yeah.
But like, I got really hung up on that, because I'm like, wait, what? He didn't get punished for that? But I realized, like, he didn't get punished because it's more of probably in a police report somewhere than anything else, right?
No, it's mentioned in passing on background. He had it in. So there were 2 incidents. One's in 2001, one's in 2003. He does not seem to have a good time around the holidays, because Christmas Eve, there are police reports 2 years in a row related to him and his wife. And then we have a 2003 report where it's on background done for one of the interviews, because this was like a popular story. Like, the fact that this had happened was a little crazy, and people were looking at it and reporting on it and doing a lot of deep dives. I don't know how accurate the killing the wife for gambling thing is, but or trying to kill the wife for, well, let me rephrase that. I don't know how accurate the choking the wife for gambling is, but it is in line with his other behavior, and somebody states it in a couple of different articles I've seen it mentioned. So I think it was one person from his background, like, retelling the story, and the press ran with it.
Sure. And I feel like at the point of life that he was at that point in time, there would have been signs.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the time, in the list of things that could possibly happen in a situation, when you're thinking to yourself, let's go tell this person, to get off our property, our hunting property, like, that is not one of the things on the list that you feel like could be a response, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of what you say to them. I mean, if I walked out in my front yard and I told somebody that happened to be on my front yard, you've got to leave, the last thing I would expect, no matter how mean or rude I was about it, would be to be shot, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And so the fact that the fact that he had the audacity, I don't know that it's audacity. He had a right to a trial. However, the fact that he didn't, plead, do you think that his attorney didn't argue any sort of diminished capacity on purpose?
You can't make that argument without facts to back it up. So
right,
that would have required in this
instance.
No, I mean, if this guy's moving forward with self-defense,
Yeah,
then
okay.
then we run into the problem of we have to have, and I don't know, these are not facts, this is me speculating.
Right, sure.
Um,
Well, I
you
asked you to, so.
you you have, in order to get a diminished capacity, you have to have an expert on board, but you actually kind of have to have the defendant on board because it's one of those things that's like in the middle gray area. And if your defendant's like, no, I'm not crazy, there's nothing wrong with me, those people fired a shot at me and called me a bunch of racial names, and now I wanted to shoot them, they deserve to die, then while you may know that like they have a diminished capacity, if the expert comes in and reviews them and they like tell the same story to the expert, and the expert's like, look, I get what you're saying, but like I think that like he thinks he was justified in doing this, and he seems to me to be pretty sound. He's clearly a giant asshole, but unfortunately he is a giant asshole with all his faculties.
Right, but just the fact that he felt like the shooting was justified shows he doesn't have all his faculties.
I'm with you, but I'm just saying if the expert brings you a report back that you can't use for diminished capacity, there's nothing you can do.
Right, but you'd be able to find. I understand an expert could do that, but okay, so not in court, in reality, for a second. In reality, this man had a diminished capacity. We don't know, like, all the ins and outs of it, but he like, something's off, right? That's it. He's not getting something. And I don't fault the attorney for not doing it. I feel like a lot of defense attorneys do not argue diminished capacity because they don't want to give their client any sort of advantage in the situation, which I don't know if that's right or wrong or indifferent. Because essentially, like...
What do you mean don't want to give them an advantage?
They don't want them to... They don't want them to have had a diminished capacity. They want them, like... I feel like you can get some leniency with diminished capacity.
Why would an attorney not want that?
I don't know. That's actually why I started asking this to begin with. A diminished capacity defense would have been way better in this situation than the defense that was offered. And
Well,
I wondered
gotcha.
if the defense attorney had done it on purpose, because
No.
there's no world where this is self-defense, like, at all. It doesn't even begin to be self-defense, right? It's not even close. A diminished capacity defense, like, and you said, well, if the client doesn't want to do that, well, yeah, if the client doesn't want to do it, it's almost like you're bolstering the diminished capacity here, right? Like, you don't even realize that your capacity has diminished.
I understand what you're saying now. So it kind of goes like this. Early in a criminal case that's this serious, you get a couple of one-time events. One of the first things that happens of those one-time events is whether or not your client has spoken with the police. Most of the times, by the time a case file hits my desk, with rare exception, 48 hours have passed. So if they were going to talk to the cops, they already did it. There's nothing I can do about that. I can't take it back. The second thing is, and this can vary, but the second thing is, if you're the defendant in a case that has already shown a lot of competency, no matter what happens next, your evaluations are going to be based on those early days. You were in court, you were answering coherently, you gave a statement to the police, the statement to the police made perfect sense.
Well, right, and so I'm not saying like full on like insanity, right? I'm just saying diminished capacity.
Right. So depending on where you are, and I don't know Wisconsin.
Yeah, no, I don't really either. I just feel like that would have been a much better idea.
It's really, it's even hard to argue intellectual disability, which I have had. I have people talk to me and like I do not even understand what they're talking about. Like I have somebody right now that's on a relatively minor charge, but they're being held with no bond because in February last year, they were in Pennsylvania in the middle of a jury trial and they were like, I don't like this. I don't like the way this is going. So the defense rested. Everybody did their closing arguments. They took a break overnight. And the next day they came in to do the charging conference, and this young person decided, I don't want to be a part of that anymore. So they left.
Were they the defendant?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that would be bad.
So they were there so what's crazy about this is for some reason there's an extradition warrant, but it doesn't include the state that I'm in.
Well, that's dumb. They finished. Did they get all the way through the trial?
They were at the charging conference.
And so did they finish in absentia?
No.
So they just dismissed everybody?
Yeah. And this person hid out for a year and change
And then
in
they got
a
picked
state
up.
that wasn't expected they would be in. Got picked up on a different thing that was kind of dumb. And here we are.
Are they fighting extradition, though? This has got to be a serious case, right?
Down here?
No, the
talking about the
case
serious-
that they... Because they
It's,
picked up on a different crime here?
It's like they're picked up on a different crime, but it's not a serious crime. It's like the crime they're accused of up there is like the alphabet assault type thing, plus the assault with a deadly weapon, intent to kill, inflicting serious injury, that whole thing. Possession of a firearm by a felon, and maybe like a de facto kidnapping where it's like move over there, but you're pointing a gun at them, so it's kidnapping. So it's just, it's serious. But the thing is, like, that person has diminished capacity all the time. They look like everything's totally fine. But when you start like digging in a little bit, it's like, oh, okay, it is fine. But what about that thing you said? And you ask them about the thing they said. And you're like, I did not know Mr. Schizophrenia was in here. Hold on. Let's sit down and talk to him for a minute. And then they expose the full-blown thing. But you have to get 2 hours into a conversation to realize it.
I would say that, let's see, could somebody... Yeah, I don't know. There's so much to that.
But my point is, you don't always know.
Well, right. But I would say, like, what I was going to say is, like, I feel like somebody who would, like, walk away at that stage of their trial, like, they're suffering from some diminished capacity. Like, no matter who it is, like, at least temporarily, they're making a really stupid decision that a completely a person that is completely capacitated would not do that, because you literally get nothing out of it as far as, sure, you don't have to you don't return the next morning, but this is going to catch up with you, right?
Yeah, I couldn't with this particular case. I couldn't find anybody at first, so I reached out and started talking to the attorneys involved, because he kept telling me he didn't want to go back east to deal with something, and I didn't know what it was. And then I looked at like all the paperwork and stuff. But so the jail called me and they were like, oh, it's like really bad news. Like his mom died and like he's got this going on and that going on. So I'm talking to the social worker about his case, and he doesn't want to go back east, and they don't have an extradition warrant, and all these things are going on. And like I go over and he tells me this like incredibly heart-rendering story about the last time he saw his mother, and now that she's dead, he doesn't know what he's going to do, and he's got to leave immediately to go to her funeral. And then, like, when you like poke down at the story, he's like explaining that she died back in February of 2025, and like he's using it as as part of his reason not to go back east to this jury trial that he abandoned. Anyways, I go home later that day and I'm talking to his attorney, and she's like, "What's going on with him?" I said, "Well, he needs a forensic exam, and then you can figure out what's happening." And she was like, "But the social worker from the jail called me and his mom died." And she tells me this whole story again that like basically I just have gone through over the last couple of days. And I sit down and I'm like, all right, well, let me find out what's going on. So I call up to his grandma's house and I'm like, I actually call a public defender where he was, who was defending him. And they give me like contact information. So I start calling around. I talk to different relatives and stuff, and stories are interesting. So I call his grandma's house because like that's the matriarch of the family. And so she answers the phone. I was like, hey, this is about, and I say his name, and she's like, oh, yeah. And I was like, where do you fit in all of this? I was just, chit-chatting, seeing how things are going. Because I don't actually know who died when or whatever happened. I just know that, like, it's a mess. And she's like, oh, he's my son. She's like, you call my mom's house, but that's my son. And I was like,
so the mom's not even dead.
I was like, so you're not dead? She's like, no. I was like, okay. So I had this whole conversation with her, get a bunch more information of like kind of where to do and how to help this kid. And I was like, is there anything that you need me to pass on? And she's like, can you tell him to call me? Because he stopped calling me like a month ago, and I don't know why. I was like, yeah, I'll tell him to call you. Yeah, so take him in and he was also like he was saying a bunch of stuff that were like, I call it sovereign citizen oriented. Like he kept asking if I had jurisdiction over him. I'm like, sir, I work for your attorney. I do not even know what you're talking about. I don't know why I would need jurisdiction to help you, but
isn't that amazing? Like that's the funniest thing to me, because essentially you help defendants and they have animosity towards you.
Oh yeah. Like we call it shaking the glass or breaking the glass. Like people will throw things or throw their bodies at the glass between us while I'm trying to help them. And like I got to go make an argument to an attorney that like, and ultimately, a judge and a prosecutor, that like this person is totally safe to be let out into society. Well, and they're banging on the glass like they're going to break it.
Doesn't that tell you like a whole lot though, like about just kind of the base level comprehension you're dealing with if they're mad at you? And it's for something that, like, I guess they could be mad at you if you did something like that irritated them. But for the most part, you're just one of the people that they think is like involved in the situation, and they don't even have a clue what your role is. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean, I try to explain it to people, but like I do it very simply, very shortly. I have different ways I explain to people what I do. And I've done aspects of this job for over 30 years. I am doing this job now full time for people who cannot afford me. Like that's my job. I investigate police. And I tell them up front. I investigate police. I investigate prosecution's witnesses. I investigate all the aspects of the case. I'm going to review all the discovery. I'm going to research case law, and I'm going to tap into this pool of experts I've created over the years. And that is also, I have, a kind of a part of that is available to me as part of my job. I'm going to find somebody who can explain to me what's happening with you or some aspect of your case. And the reason I talk to people about it up front is, and it is mostly serious felonies. It's not anything, I'm not usually assigned to things that are run of the mill. They usually have a question, and they're usually a serious felony where someone is facing a tremendous amount of jail time, 10 years or more. In a lot of instances, it's 25 years to life. So I sit down and I tell them, it is best if you answer the questions that I ask you truthfully, because we have this bucket of resources, and that bucket of resources never gets refilled. It's time and it's money, and it might just look like a water bucket sitting in front of you. But like, if you send me down the wrong path, trying to like get me to do things that like are fantastical, that water drains out of that bucket and we never get to refill it. We run out of time at some point. You're on trial. We haven't found the thing that you sent me chasing. So it is better if you're upfront with me.
And you're typically the only shot they have.
Right. And like, that's one of the area that I live in. We joke about this. I'm responsible for like a big judicial district that's got a lot of cases is me, and one other person takes the other half of it in the smaller part of the district. And we probably have between us 30 agencies that we deal with in terms of the other side, and none of them have less than 3 or 4 detectives. Like, I don't think any of them have that few. So I am your one resource in all of that. And people will still lie to me all the time. They lie to me, they're embarrassed. They don't want me to know something. So like, it takes months to like work on a major felony where somebody's in custody for something that maybe they didn't do, or maybe there's some reason that they should not be in custody. It takes months to find it. And it's so weird to me that happens. But I think there's an aspect to this that people miss out on. And that is, if you're here in jail, charged with a crime and caught, and you talk to the cops and you're being held without bail, like, I think a large percentage of the population of people who end up in that position potentially have something seriously wrong. Diminished capacity, intellectual disability. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
Right. And diminished capacity, at least from my perspective, it doesn't excuse a crime, right? It just really helps me understand stupid behavior sometimes.
Yeah.
I guess would be a way to put it. Because sometimes people do things that just don't make any gosh darn sense.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time. This is one of those cases I had a hard time. I had never heard of it before.
Do you have anything else on this case?
No, I don't.
So there's this other case, and I got him a little confused. So the guy we were just talking about is Chaivang. That's his name, Kai Vaj. There's another case from January 2007. Did you see this one when I sent it over?
I did.
It's one letter different. So this guy is Ka Vaj, Chavang. And I know I'm saying some of these wrong, but I'm trying to present it the way I've been told to pronounce it. And it's kind of an odd thing in how I talk, I think, that makes it sound weird. This is a case, it's the opposite. So this kid was born in Laos as well, spends most of his life in a refugee camp, comes over, mid-2004, he ends up being in Green Bay, Wisconsin. He's working at a factory. He has a bunch of kids. I think I saw he had 5 kids. And he goes out with squirrel hunters in Green Bay on January 5th, 2007. So this is just a couple years after the story we were just telling. They're out in different parts of the forest, and they spot this guy, and he's in the woods hunting squirrels as well. And according to the autopsy, Chaivang gets shot from about 50 feet away with a shotgun. And then he's stabbed 6 times in his face and neck. And his body is like shoved under a log. And I was like, what in the world happened here? But so this is all January 5th, 2007. January 6th, 2007, a guy shows up at a hospital with a gunshot wound to his hand. His name is James Allen Nichols. And from what I can tell, he's born and raised in Wisconsin. He had a record for, it looked like burglary and like obtaining property. He and also told his boss in October 2006 that he hated Hmong immigrants. So at one point in time, he said that a Hmong hunter had stolen a tree stand from him. And he tells multiple people he would have killed that hunter if he would have had a rifle that day instead of a bow. Because he's not supposed to have a gun because he's a convicted felon. So he shows up in the hospital. He says a stranger shot him with a .22 caliber gun, but he doesn't. He's asked why the police haven't been called. he like changes up his story because, you know, if you go in with a gunshot wound, they have to report it.
Right. And it's immediately going to link you to whoever
Something.
got shot. Yeah.
Right. So he ends up talking to the first responders that come to talk to him, the cops and somebody else come. And like he takes them to where he had put this guy under the log. Because of his own statements, he's already put himself in a position where like he's been quoted on the record saying that Hmong people are bad, they kill everything, they go for anything that moves in the woods, they're mean people. He said all of these like terrible things. So there's not going to be much of a trial. He led authorities to this body of this young man, Cavaj. And March 19th, 2007, 2 months later, he pleads not guilty. They've charged him with first-degree intentional homicide, felony possession of a weapon. I think it's felon in possession of a firearm and hiding a corpse. So on October 6, 2007, a jury finds this guy, James Allen Nichols, guilty of second-degree intentional homicide. They give him 69 years in prison. Now, the community over in St. Paul, so this happens in Wisconsin, but like Wisconsin and Minnesota are like tied together in a lot of ways, community-wise. The spokesperson for the Coalition for Community Relations in St. Paul, Minnesota comes out and says, the message that has been sent to the Hmong community is that someone can shoot a Hmong hunter and not get the maximum sentence. I start going further down this path of like how many things have happened in the woods between like white hunters and Hmong people. There are a lot of incidents. It's like something you never think you read about.
It makes no sense to me. Do you know if Wisconsin and Minnesota have a high number of Hmong either immigrants or I guess a larger community, or do you know?
Yeah, I mean so they have a higher number of immigrants, period.
Man,
as
that
of
would not be where I would want to go. It's cold up there, right?
Yeah. So here's what I pulled in terms of the population. There's an estimated 500,000 folks who share traits with Hmong. Specifically identifying as Hmong, there are believed to be 350 to 375,000 in the United States. This population has more than doubled since 2000. Okay.
Okay.
And by the way, it's doubled because of birth rates, not further immigration.
Well,
so,
right. Yeah, no, I got that.
Here's the breakdown of like that population. 120,000 of them live in California. 100,000 of them live in Minnesota. 65,000 live in Wisconsin. Just under 13,000 live in North Carolina. Around 8,000 live in Oklahoma, and 7,500 live in Michigan. That's almost the entire population. There's an unknown number in Alaska.
Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting. That's more than 80% of the entire U.S. Hmong population, and three of them, like 3 states, is California, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. That's where we have like the most problems is in Minnesota, Wisconsin.
Right. And so I've never lived in Minnesota or Wisconsin, and it makes sense to me. It makes a little more sense now because I was very surprised when I saw this case because it literally took something from the other case that I thought was ridiculous and actually made it true.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, right? I don't completely understand the quote was that Nichols had was quoted on the record saying Hmong people are bad, mean, and quote, kill everything, and that they go for anything that moves, end quote. And so is that
We're
having,
talking about hunting.
well, I was going to say, is that having to do with like the competitive nature of hunting? Is that what he's talking about there?
Partially, I think he's also talking about them not following the rules of hunting, is what he's implying. Like shooting a turkey during deer season, or shooting a doe when you're not supposed to shoot a doe, or shooting a bird when it's squirrel season, that kind of thing.
And so I imagine he found that irritating, I guess.
Well, it's always weird to me when a convicted felon with a gun wants to tell other people what to do in terms of following rules. But,
Well,
my
okay,
guess is like he just had bad experiences with other hunters that didn't look like him, and he developed a disdain for them over the years.
Okay, well, that makes sense, I guess. But I imagine there's a process you can go through to like legitimately go to Wildlife and Game and be like,
Yeah, you could go to DNR and make a complaint and hopefully get their license revoked, which means if they hunt illegally, they would be cited or potentially charged, depending on where they're at and what they're doing. There's always a process, and people want shortcuts, man.
and so he just went away, right? That was it,
Yeah. He's not going to get out again.
right? And it seemed like there was some backlash that I didn't completely understand because
They're mad because he only got 69 years. He didn't get life without parole.
I see. But sometimes it's actually better for it to be a numbered sentence.
Yeah. I mean,
Because sometimes life is not what you think it is.
Oh, I 100% agree with that. I mean, look, it's not going to be great when you're looking at a situation like this where people have died. Regardless, either one of these situations, they're terrible. You honestly should probably take the win. And I say that because it sounds terrible to the Hmong people, but like there's so many ways that like having that type of racism go on can result in somebody walking. So 69 years should be considered a win.
I was going to say, regardless of race or any other thing, if your loved one was taken violently from you in a homicidal situation, if the perpetrator who did it gets 69 years, like I think that's justice.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's unlikely that most people getting 69 years are ever going to get out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I wouldn't look badly upon that just because I think that was it second degree it was second degree intentional homicide.
Convictions?
Yeah.
He gets second degree intentional. I pulled him up. Hold on. I kept it somewhere in here. He's listed as American Indian, not white, by the way.
Oh, that's interesting, I guess. But again, I feel like that's just not a way that I've ever seen.
He doesn't have a parole eligibility date either, by the way. It says his discharge date, which I guess he must have done something else, will be January 19th, 2111.
Well, that's more than 69 years.
Yeah, he has that conviction. He has a previous conviction out of Marinette, the same county. Let's see what that is. I think the other case was some kind of burglary. But he was out on parole for a long time. So, yeah, here we go. He's got burglary of a dwelling, criminal damage to property, burglary of a building or dwelling with a bunch of, like if you look at it, like there's a bunch of counts. They're all Class C and D felonies. Theft of movable property. He got a really long sentence on that. He got out on parole. He committed this murder while he was on parole. he's not ever getting out. They just didn't want to go through the trouble of a trial and take a risk with him. There's probably two different communities that are mad about this, with him being listed in here as American Indian. That's his like classification here on his Fender detail.
Mm-hmm.
That's James Allen Nichols. And
that's interesting. I wonder if he really is.
It's not my job to question that.
No, I got you. No, I just didn't know. Like, a lot of people think that they're American Indian. They're not. But, I mean, I'm not saying that's the case here. I'm just curious. Did you ever know why he was shot?
No.
I wonder if...
I think it was over a squirrel.
Well, I know, but, like, I wonder if his victim shot him.
I think it's... I think the idea was... I think he shot himself by accident in the hand while shooting the victim.
Okay, well...
But it could be... I could definitely be convinced that his victim got a shot off at him.
Yeah, well, that's what I was curious to know. And see, in that case, it would be like
that might actually be self-defense.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking. And like, it seems like a weird situation because of how it ultimately plays out. And you know, regardless of hiding the body like that, and like some of the other things he did, it actually seems like it might have been something like that. Of course, I don't know that the shot initially would have been on purpose either, right?
Right.
I think he was squirrel hunting, so like things happen out in the woods, right?
They do. I mean, I don't hunt. I have a lot of family that hunts, but I don't hunt because it just doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah, I don't hunt either. And it seems like it's not a great idea in Wisconsin to go hunting.
No, I don't think it is.
Special consideration was given to True Crime Excess by LabRottiCreations.com. If you have a moment in your favorite app, please go on and give us a review or a 5-star rating. It helps us get noticed in the crowd. This is True Crime XS.
You fall like the stars. I break things like guitars. Thick skin, no scars. We're in trouble, we took it too far. I don't want to go, but it's 'cause I'll disappoint ya. It's all I've ever dreamed of, something I cannot let go of. I hate the competition, this culture's like a gym, and I lost the motivation to get fit in your expectations.
True Crime Excess is brought to you by John and Meg. It's written, produced, edited, and posted by John and Meg. You can always support True Crime Excess through Patreon.com, or if you have a story you'd like them to cover, you can reach them at TrueCrimeAccess.com. Thank you for joining us.